and welcome to tonight's licensing subcommittee meeting. My name is Councillor Patrick Walsh, and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. This meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. If I lose connection, Councillor Wesley Harcourt will take over from me. I'd like to remind participants of a few housekeeping points. Please keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. Please keep your camera turned on when you speak at the hearing. Please note that the chat function has been disabled. If parties wish to add any additional information other than at their allocated time to speak, they must use the raise hand function so that they are not missed. I also ask that members keep their questions and comments brief and to the point. I will now move on to item 1 of the agenda. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence, and none have been received. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members of the committee have any declarations of interest they wish to make at this point?
Chair, my hand is raised.
Yes, Councillor Harcourt.
No problem. Just for the sake of transparency, I wish to make it clear that I do know that the objector, Miss Siobhan Coughlin, she is a former councillor of this local authority, and I was on the same administration at her. I have not spoken to her about this subject or discussed it in any way.
Thank you, Councillor Harcourt.
Nothing from me.
Perfect. In that case, we move along to agenda item 3, which is Lammy Jack at 96 Shepherd's Bush Road, London W6. I'd like to ask everybody participating to introduce themselves as I call upon you. So we should have present Jean Charles, the applicant.
Hello, hi, good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity for this committee. So I'm the owner and manager of Lammy Jack.
Good evening to you, sir. We should also have present with us Councillor Jacqueline Daly from Addison Ward.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening, Councillor. And we should have Lorna McKenna, the licensing officer.
Yes, present, Chair.
Good evening, Lorna. And we should have Emmanuel, the council's legal officer as well.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening. So we shall now move along to the and the responsible authorities. So we should have Adrian Overton, the licensing authority.
Present, Chair. Thank you. Good evening.
We should have Anona Author.
Yes, present, Chair. Good evening.
Good evening. And we should have Teo Lampetti as well.
Yeah, good evening, Chair.
Good evening, Teo. And then speaking in objection this evening, we should have Siobhan Coughlin.
Yes, I'm here.
Good evening, Siobhan. Okay, good evening to you all, and let's move along to the procedure. So the procedure this evening is as follows. In addition to the main agenda, a supplementary agenda containing additional information from the objectors as well as an enforcement history was published on the 9th of December 24. Before we consider the application today, please may I quickly explain the procedure. We will hear from the following. The licensing officer will introduce the application. We will then hear from the responsible authorities, followed by the objector, and finally we will hear from the applicant, with Councillor Daly speaking on behalf of the applicant. Usually each party will address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. Following the presentation by all parties, the committee may ask questions of any party or other person present at the hearing. Except for committee members, no party has the right to ask questions of any other party at any time during the hearing. Following the presentation and questioning, each party will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to sum up their case or representation. The committee will then retire for deliberations. Upon its return, I will announce the committee's decision. So could I please ask the licensing officer, Lorna McKenna, to introduce the application?
Yes, thank you, Chair. But sorry if my internet seems to be cutting out, so if it cuts out, I do apologise. So on the 18th of October 2024, the Licensing Authority received a valid application for a new premises licence in respect of the premises known as Lammy Jack, 96 Shepherd's Bush Road, London W67PD, submitted by Lammy Jack Limited, the applicant. The applicant has applied for a new premises licence for the following licensable activities, days and times. The exhibition of films, indoors only, Mondays to Sunday between the hours of 11 a.m. till midnight. The provision of late night refreshment, indoors only, Mondays to Sundays between the hours of 11 till midnight. And the sale of alcohol both on and off the premises, Monday to Sundays between the hours of 11 a.m. till midnight. The proposed opening hours of the premises are Mondays to Sundays between the hours of 7 a.m. till midnight. The applicant has proposed steps within the operating schedule to promote the 4 licensing objectives if the application is granted this evening. And on the 13th of November 2024, following correspondence with the police licensing team, the applicant did agree to amend the hours applied for the sale of alcohol on the premises only and add 11 further conditions to the licence if granted as outlined in the main agenda of the report. The change to the licensable activities, which has been agreed with the police, is that the sale of alcohol on the premises only will be from Monday to Sundays between the hours of 11 a.m. till 11:30 p.m. During the consultation period, the licensing section received 6 objections to the licensing application, 1 representation from Mr. Adrian Overton on behalf of the licensing authority, 1 representation from Ms. Anona Arthur on behalf of the Environmental Public Protection Team, and 4 representations from local residents, all objecting to the grant of this licence application. I can confirm further to the main agenda that supplementary agenda item A which was circulated to all parties on the 9th of December 2024, which included additional information from one of the resident objectors and further information on the enforcement history at the applicant's other premises of 94 Shepherd's Bush Road, by the licensing authority. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lorna. We'll now hear from the responsible authorities. So I'd like to start with Adrian Overton, the licensing authority. And Adrian, you have up to 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone. Just by way of background, the licensing authority has made a representation to this application solely on the basis of past adverse enforcement history at a neighbouring premises, which the applicant currently owns and operates. As you will note from the comments in my representation, and just to summarise the chronology of this case, we first engaged with the applicant in December 2023, as we had received a number of complaints that the business was operating out of hours at their premises at 94 Shepherd's Bush Road. At this stage, we made the applicant aware that they must adhere to the terms of their licence. We also made them aware that it would be a criminal offence if they continued to offer licensable activities without the correct authorisation. A full licensing inspection was carried out on the 9th of February 2024, and 29 breaches of conditions were identified during this visit. A warning letter was issued on this occasion, and written advice was given to the licence holder at the same time. Advice was also given on a potential variation application, as it appeared that the licence had a number of conditions which were not relevant to the day-to-day operation of the premises, and we suggested that these conditions should be removed as soon as possible. Further advice and guidance was given in April and May 2024, and a full variation was finally submitted in May 2024 to remove any unnecessary conditions from the licence. In June 2024, noise officers visited the premises after 11 p.m. and although some customers were leaving appeared to be causing a disturbance, this was not in any way excessive and there was no breaches of conditions identified at this time. On the 9th of July, noise officers visited the premises again, and they noted a breach of condition 9, as there was no complaints record held at that time. And then on the 16th of August, the licensing team found the premises to be operating in the absence of a personal license holder, which is a breach of condition 17 of the license. And again, advice was offered on this occasion. Given the ongoing breaches at the premises, a multi-agency meeting, a virtual meeting, was held on the 17th of September, with officers from the licensing team, the police licensing team, and the noise and nuisance officers. The license holder was given advice and guidance on how to comply with his license, and he was made aware that formal action may be taken if breaches continued. Further breaches were then witnessed by licensing officers on the 11th of October during the day, and at 10:28 on the evening on the 11th of October as well, when customers were found outside the premises, which is contrary to conditions 29 and 30 of the premises license. Warnings were issued for the breaches on these occasions. It should be said that most recently, during an observation on the 4th of December, the premises was operating lawfully, and during inspection on the 5th of December, there were no breaches of conditions identified. As you'll be aware from the timeline in my representations, officers from the team have spent a considerable amount of time dealing with this case and have offered a huge amount of advice and guidance since December 2023, including helping the licence holder make a variation application. Despite this, we have still witnessed breaches of conditions on several occasions, and we are concerned that there has been a general disregard of the information and advice offered by officers. Sorry. However, the most recent visits, as outlined, and observations in December have been positive, and we have not found any issues during these visits. Given the recent licensing inspection and the council's ongoing commitment to support businesses in a challenging economic climate, and our commitment to a thriving nighttime economy, we are not looking today to object to the licence being granted. However, to try and minimise the chances of any future non-compliance, we have asked the committee to consider requesting that a different designated premises supervisor is responsible for licensable activities at this premises going forward. I've got nothing else to say to add at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
We'll then move along to Anona, and Theo, who are the environmental protection team. And between you both, you have 5 minutes to speak.
Hello. So I'm just going to read out my report that I've written. So my name is Anona Arthur from the environmental protection team. We've basically had a long history of complaints, of noise complaints. That's the environmental public protection team, and we've had significant concerns regarding the extension of the Lammy Jack wine bar due to a history of noise complaints at 94 Shepherd's Bush Road, affecting the complainant who lives above the premises. The noise at 94 Shepherd's Bush Road has the same premises supervisor licensee as 96 Shepherd's Bush Road. I objected, or the environmental public protection team objects to the application to prevent public nuisance due to the history of complaints at 94 Shepherd's Bush Road. Additionally, the applicant has not submitted a noise management plan to ensure no noise nuisance is caused or public nuisance to neighbouring residents. The environmental public protection team have been involved in investigating the noise nuisance complaints made against 94 Shepherd's Bush Road. Although the majority of complaints have not been substantiated, the officers have witnessed noise on a couple of occasions. Specific incidents: the first complaint we received on the 7th of December 2023 in my records, regarding parties at the wine bar until 3 a.m. at the weekends, despite the premises being licensed until 10 p.m. I have numerous, in our database, we have numerous case references which relate to numerous noise complaints logged by the complainant. So we have a total of 45 complaints, which consist of loud music, voices, noise from patrons leaving the premises late at night, public nuisance, watching football on the premises, banging and noisy shutters. Also, more recently, we had a complaint about building noise, banging and drilling, and a large crowd inside the premises shouting and screaming. Multiple calls were received between the 7th of December 2023 and the 5th of November 2024 detailing various noise complaints, which, as I previously mentioned, a total of 45. On the 17th of September 2024, there was a case review with the licensing and the police, the meeting with licensing and police to discuss planned joint actions. The meeting lead by Sophia Licensing Enforcement gave another verbal warning to the licensee regarding not having a DPS while he was on holiday and the premises were open and selling alcohol. He was also advised to follow his licensing conditions and not to assume that general conditions apply to his premises. Okay, so another incident which took place on the 25th of December 2024, where the environmental protection officers visited the premises at 2310 and saw a number of people sitting outside at bare barrels tables, talking and drinking wine. There were also a number of people inside the premises. There was a general hubbub in the street, and although noticeably above the background noise was unlikely to be a statutory nuisance. At about 23:12, some people left and shouted their farewells to some of the people remaining. On arrival, there were 34 people either inside the premises or sitting at the barrel tables. Officers did not see any alcohol being purchased and spoke to the owner, who said he was having a party to celebrate his birthday. He also said that he had spoken to licensing, who said that he could have a party as long as he didn't sell any alcohol. Officers said that did not mean that he could disturb his neighbours, and the shouting as people left was clearly disturbing considering the time of night. He said that he had a very difficult neighbour who was always complaining and pointed to the complainant who was on his balcony. Officers advised that the noise from his guests was likely to annoy his neighbours. He said he would close the party down. Officers said they would drive by later to check that his guests had left and that they would be reporting what they had heard and seen.
No, 5 minutes is now concluded, so can you please sum up?
Okay, so basically we've had numerous complaints from the premises. The complainant lives above the wine bar, which is likely to give rise to disturbance due to the nature of the business, especially after 10 p.m. at night, when the background noise level is reduced and the complainant is entitled to peace and quiet enjoyment of his premises under the Environmental Protection Act. In addition, the complainant shares a floor ceiling which is not sufficiently insulated for a flat above a shop. Therefore, airborne noise is likely to pass from the commercial premises to the residential premises and give rise to noise disturbance from the activities in the commercial premises.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. We will now hear from the objector, Siobhan Coughlin. Siobhan, you have up to 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. First and foremost, I need to advise the committee that I used to be a councillor in Hammersmith and Fulham from 2002 to 1998 was my first term to 2002, then 2002 to 2006. I know some of the councillors on this panel, including Councillors Harcourt and yourself, Councillor Walsh, but just to assure everybody, there's been no discussions, conversations, correspondence in any way whatsoever regarding this matter. And if anything, I deliberately avoided a social occasion where we all might have been recently to ensure there was no opportunity for any conversations whatsoever. The key point about this is I actually live on this parade, and so I'm directly affected by it. I've been a councillor in the area, as I said, and I've lived here for over 30 years. And I've watched how the parade of shops has evolved and changed. And importantly to me, the wine shop, when it opened, looked like it was going to be a great asset. And indeed it has been, bringing business to the other shops along there. In case colleagues are not aware, number 96, the property, number 94 is the current business. Number 96 was a hairdresser, so that's why there's never been any issues or problems with that property before now. Though I'm further along the parade, I can sometimes hear noise from people outside who are talking and laughing. The challenge is once it gets to about 8 p.m. along this road, there is no traffic. There's literally, I can look out my window now and there is little or no traffic. There is no noise on this parade. So you do hear voices quite clearly as it bounces off the buildings. I can hear it from time to time, particularly in the summer months if you've got windows open, and it does cause a disturbance. So it probably is a lot worse for those in the flats immediately above the shops. As I said, it's about trying to get the balance right between having a thriving business that's good for the area, but also respecting the fact that people live here, are trying to live their lives. People are trying to sleep. They've got to get up and go to work the next day. They may have young children who they've got to get to school the next day. What surprised me was after I submitted my objection, which was a very basic one, was when I read through the additional information which highlighted the number of complaints there had been and the number of enforcement issues that officers had to come out to. That was surprising because I would have hoped that if warnings had been given and advice had been given, that they would have responded to that and learned from that. But it seems to me that that hasn't happened in the way that perhaps we would have all have hoped for and expected. So it's a tricky one. It's a good, trying to make sure we've got a thriving business, but also not disrupting the lives of the residents who have lived here for as long as me. As I said, I've lived here for 30 years. So that's the reason why, on balance, I have come out to say that I think anything beyond 11 o'clock at night is way too late. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Siobhan. Now that we've heard from those speaking in objection, we will now hear from the applicant. As I understand it, Councillor Jacqueline Daly, you will be speaking on behalf of the applicant. As 15 minutes has been given to objectors, you will equally have 15 minutes to speak to this application. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Before I actually speak, can I just say that I'm a little bit disappointed to be sharing the slot. I made a representation which apparently landed just a little too early and wasn't counted from licensing. But I've been acting, speaking in support of Lammy Jack for some time. And it is a shame that I have to share this spot with Jean-Charles. Jean-Charles has a lot of things that I think he wants to say and a lot of things that he wants to put right. First of all, I'd like to say that I recognise.
Sorry, before Councillor, you continue, if I may interrupt, you're representing the applicant, so please just make sure what you're saying is on behalf of the applicant. I understand that you made a representation, but it's not been deemed valid, so your time slot is on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you. Chair?
Yeah, Councillor, if you wish to continue.
Okay, thank you. So now I understand why residents have opposed this. I think that I recognise some of the voices there, and I've seen kind of complaints that have landed from residents in that area, specifically objecting to noise from the Richmond pub, which has a licence until midnight, noise from roadworks. It's a very active area. It's a main artery road. There's been a lot going on, and there's been an awful lot going on in the last couple of years. It's been really noisy. The management has now changed from the Richmond, and those noise levels and noise complaints have reduced. But nevertheless, I understand why residents are particularly triggered by that sort of issue. However, Jean-Charles is the kind of person, he was one of the people that really bent over backwards to help this community during COVID. His business has grown locally and organically. He started in our local market, and then he kind of got this first small shop, and now he's got the second one next to it. He's from our community, and I think that's a really important distinction to make. I have heard from residents who've talked about the support and that he provided to them and provides to them now, and the degree of community that he's brought to people, even at kind of the lowest and loneliest of times, which is probably why I have received more emails over this issue in support of Jean-Charles than I have in any other single issue. I've had over 50 residents approach me to talk to me about this, and I'd like to take you through some of the things that they've said. But Jean-Charles, I mean, all in, I think that I've heard and I'm aware that he's a really good man. He's upstanding. He is exactly
Sorry,
the sort.
Councillor. I understand they've made comments, but those representations were not made in time. So if you could just speak.
If I can say, I'm here to represent. My role here is representing residents, and I've got 50 residents, more than 50 behind me, and I'm speaking on behalf of Jean-Charles. And I think it's really important that members of this committee understand where Jean-Charles and Lamy Jack sits in our community and how the majority of residents feel about what it brings. People discuss, let me tell you, so 3/4 of people talk about the amazing sense of community that Jean-Charles and Lamy Jacks bring. Half of them talk about how it's a high street hub that is so important. The character and the charm of it is really significant. I'm now starting to race through it because I feel slightly defensive about what I'm saying. Really important for a lot of women who've written to me, and half of everybody who's written or spoken to me is a woman. It's a really safe space for women to go, and there aren't that many in our borough. This is a place where women feel comfortable to walk in on their own and
Sorry,
sit.
Councillor, I'm just being given advice that while members of the committee may wish to ask you questions directly at a later point, in terms of the questions or the representation that you can make at this point, it needs solely to refer to Jean-Charles exclusively. Apologies to you, Councillor, but I am being given advice that it must be solely on behalf of the applicant themselves. The contributions that you may have received from other residents cannot be included at this portion. I apologise to you, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, thank you. Given that I, had attempted to make representations, we're in a really poor position. Okay, so let me talk about then the type of trading environment that Jean-Charles is working in. He has, and residents have raised this. He's an important part of the local economy there. And he's operating on a street that's very noisy, a main arterial, a lot of emergency vehicles going up and down. There's a lot of traffic going up and down there. There are an awful lot of businesses, and I have a small list here because I didn't see it in the pack of just some of the local businesses. So just down the road, there's the Brook Green Hotel, which is opened until 1:30 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, and 10 a.m. to midnight on Sundays. Opposite is the Richmond pub, slightly diagonal, which is open until 1 a.m. Friday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to midnight on Sunday. Right next door, there's a Petit Citron, which has a license until 11:30, midnight on Monday to Saturday, 11:30 on Sunday. Real Thai is opposite. They have a license until midnight on Saturday, till midnight on Monday to Friday, until 11:30 on Sunday. Just further down the road, Los Molinos has a license until midnight, Monday to Friday, 11:30 on Sunday. He is in a block of licensed premises, bars and restaurants that all have extended licenses. It seems particularly egregious, if you like, that Jean-Charles does not have a license to match the retailers that the other premises around him, particularly when he's providing something so unique, such a small business bringing something that's really such a different environment, kind of a wine bar that sells cheese, doesn't sell beer, doesn't sell whiskey. It's a very different place. I would urge councillors, members of the committee, to ask officers just how many different complainants there have been. I ask this, I'm very interested to find out, because I've had maybe a third of residents who've written to me have mentioned a particular resident who I'm told, just from the emails, I don't know this personally, that he objects to women drinking alcohol, to the consumption of pork, and to dogs, which are all on the premises, and has been particularly adamant. I think that I've heard of physical attacks. I've heard of him staring at women patrons who are kind of sitting and drinking. I've heard him taking photographs, and I think that John Charles has been under particular stresses and strains with that business. I also would like to just draw your attention to the fact that he's a small business, and John Charles, I'm sorry if I'm using up so much of your time here, but he's a small business. He doesn't have the benefits of, say, Fuller's behind him. When he's faced with a licensing and his business partner faced with a licensing sheet, he didn't have the information. He didn't know to apply for the building and not for a personal license. Many of the kind of the toolkits that bars and restaurants are given when they're part of a chain aren't available to small traders. And I think that if we want small traders, small businesses to succeed in our borough, and we really do have to, we really do need to support our nighttime economy, then actually maybe we need to do a little bit more to help them fill out the forms and complete these things in the right way, so they're not opening themselves up to adverse conditions and conditions that are really difficult to stick to. I've got so very much more that I'd like to say, but Jean-Charles, I really should pass over to you so you can speak yourself.
Yes. So first of all, we just celebrated 3 years at La Mijac on 94 Shepherd Bush Road, and I think the complaint started only a year ago. So that's a bit awkward. So I just want to say as well, when my business partner applied for the premises license, he applied for all the conditions. And one of your officers told us that we had more conditions to apply than Chelsea Club. So I suppose it was a COVID effect because nobody from the council advised us that we had so many conditions to apply. And that's why we breached so many conditions. Regarding because the condition, it was not apply. It was impossible for us as a little business to apply for it. So that's why it took time between the variation, etc., to respect the license. So nevertheless, since beginning of December, we had a control recently, and it's all clear now. I must say it was at the beginning of my business was just a one merchant, and we have the demand from our customer if we are going to have some tables, which we've done, but obviously 10 o'clock was too short. When you go to the bar or one bar and you finish at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock is very short. It gives us it's very frustrating to say.
Sorry to interrupt you, Jean-Charles. There seems to be a lot of background noise at present. Are you able to adjust your microphone or anything? There's a lot of background interference coming through.
Can you hear me better? Should I speak better on the microphone?
Yeah, that seems to be better.
Okay. So what I want to say is we start working on the ceiling recently. So we are going to put how do we say to protect the sound for the neighbor upstairs. So I think we've done many efforts, and obviously for us as a little business to close at 10 o'clock, it's very frustrating. So that's why we apply for TEN license. I think we applied for 10 TEN license, and during those licenses, we never had a complaint. I try my best to respect the condition, and I think the street is actually very busy. As you know, we have a fire station, hospital, and police station. There are 3 terraces. We have close to Elim. We have a Petit Citron. We have a bar next to us. So it's very bizarre that the people are complaining only for our premises. I just want to say, yes, we created a community here. As the councillor mentioned, we had more than 50 letters from different people, ladies mainly. We had a few incidents in the street recently. We had a lady who has been put down by a boyfriend in the street. It was 10 o'clock, so we had to close the shop normally. We opened it, and at the same time, there was a guy who was taking picture. We had recently, we have a nice couple. They couldn't find a place to live in. They went to the hotel was closed. So they saw us because we were we opened the place and we host them. And likely, I have one of my customer who invite them. So it's more than a pub. It's more than a wine bar, really. I created a community. It is humanity. We have the sense of value of humanity, solidarity, where the ladies and gentlemen are, we say, fraternized. They are talking each other. My business model is basically to invite people to meet each other. It's different than a bar because it's a beer ambiance. It's more here. It's more mixed. In my place, we are selling a very good product, fresh product, and we are working very hard for that. Working in hospitality nowadays is very, very difficult. It's very difficult to find some staff as well. So we are very pleased to be in this area to build this community. We need it because honestly, you can come every night. It will be always busy. We have some people who are feeling lonely. They come to the bar. We have people who are working late and they are very happy to have a glass of wine after work. So it's different. We offer a different business model that the other shop are offering in the street. So yeah, this is what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Jean-Charles, for your contribution. There is a few more minutes remaining if you wish to speak, but otherwise we can move on to the questions by the committee. Yeah, you're still within time.
Yeah, so you mentioned a lot of complaints, 45 complaints, but I think it comes from one person. I don't know how many person complaints, but please check the number of people who complain about my premises license regarding the noise team.
Okay.
May I interject? Sorry, Chair.
You're still within your time so long as it's still related to your representation on behalf of Mr. Charles.
Jean-Charles, can I ask you to maybe talk to some of the works that you've been doing to improve sound insulation in the neighbouring? I mean, I like to bring it back that we are discussing 96 and not 94, and all of this is relating to 94. But Jean-Charles, would you mind just speaking to some of those kind of measures that you've been taking, how you've managed to find out where the noise is getting through, and what you're doing about it?
Yeah, so we we started to do some works on the ceiling a few days ago, and we discovered that the ceiling was a bit cheesy with a lot of holes from the previous tenant. When we took off the till, we recognized that there were holes everywhere. So in the next few days, we are going to put some soundproofing. But that I couldn't guess because obviously that was under the till, and we didn't have a statement for that. Regarding the new shop, it's very well insulated. We apply for the TEN license. We are allowed to do that, but it's been refused. It's a bit a shame because it's more isolated than the other place. So the fact is the whole place is noisy because the ceiling is not in good condition. We are working on it. The new place, I got my landlord when I took it. He asked me to change the floor because it was not very well insulated. I did. I've done it. We've done it. Regarding the ceiling, is so much better. So the fact that we are in Christmas time right now and I cannot organize a Christmas party because of the noise is penalize my business so far. If I don't make money in December, it will be difficult.
And the new place is also double glazed. It's worth saying that. So the sound
The boss
insulation of
place
properties
is
are
that
much
double
higher.
glazed. We never had, from all the people who came from the noise team, we never had complaints when they checked the sound from inside. Also, I'm allowed to have some friends. I'm not serving alcohol, but this is a premises. I'm allowed to serve some friends. I'm allowed to offer a glass of wine to my team after work. And and the shutter, I'm sorry to say, but the shutter, it's been checked by the noise team as well. It's not so noisy, not more than my neighbors. And nobody in England can tell to someone to finish working at this time. For example, if we close, my goal is, to be honest, is to get a license until midnight, but I want to close at 11 o'clock. I don't want to have someone in the street taking pictures of my customer. So I want to have a little margin for the people to finish a glass. But I just want to say, yes, it's been very...
Final 30 seconds, sir.
It's been very difficult to trade because harassment of my neighbor recently since 1 year.
Thank you very much for your contributions. We will now move along to committee questions, and can I ask committee questions to can I ask members of the committee to ask any questions of any party about the application and issues that have been raised at the hearing in relation to the 4 licensing objectives. As a reminder, the 4 licensing objectives are 1, the prevention of crime and disorder, 2, public safety, 3, the prevention of public nuisance, and 4, the protection of children from harm. So do any members of the committee wish to ask a question? I can see first on my screen is Councillor Harcourt.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, Councillor Stanton had his hand up before me, so I'll give way to
in that case, I defer to Councillor Stanton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Harcourt, and thank you everybody who has spoken so far. I do have a few questions. They are, for now, mainly just for clarification while I gather my thoughts. So I may come back with some more questions once Councillor Harcourt and yourself have asked their questions. So my first question is actually to Adrian Overton in licensing. Good evening, Adrian.
Good evening.
I was busy scribbling down the list of breaches, or at least the occurrences as you were listing them. Might I ask 2 things? I know some of the breaches were, shall we say, of a technical nature, whereas others were more directly related to the other objections that we've received for this evening. Can you, so I have 2 questions, and if I give you them both in one go, perhaps you could just answer them both. So my first question is, could you just summarize the breaches and remind us of the dates of them for the breaches that kind of basically relate to either time breaches or noise and nuisance breaches? And then my second question following that up is, at what point would further action have been considered to have been taken on the premise at number 94? Those are my 2.
Yep.
Please address those. Can I also, just before you answer that, just to clarify that I am aware, as I think the whole committee is aware, that the licensing application for today is for number 96, it's not for number 94, and that we do, of course, judge all applications on their own merits. But due to the unusual nature of this application, whereby it is 2 conjoined properties, and I will actually be asking some questions about that shortly, we have to kind of bear in mind some of the incidents that have happened previously at the other premise. Thank you, Adrian. Over to you.
No problem. Thanks, Councillor. I mean, just in terms of a summary, I can tell you when warning letters were issued, if that helps. And then obviously there's been breaches of conditions that have been identified by the noise team as well as by licensing officers as well. So when we first...
I will be going to noise after you.
Okay, right, I'm with you, yeah. So when we first visited in February 2024, we carried out a full licensing inspection. There were then 29 breaches of conditions, and this was during the point when Mr. Steekwell mentioned where there was an awful lot of conditions on the license. I think there was over 60 conditions on the license, and we left a copy of the inspection sheet there as a warning letter on that occasion. We then gave written advice to the license holder after that inspection and just outlined the breaches of conditions. And then we visited again on the 29th of April and noted that a number of conditions that are required to be displayed in relation to customers being quiet when they leave the building, etc. 3 conditions of that effect were not exhibited. Sorry, 3 posters to that effect were not exhibited, and a warning letter was given on that occasion. Then the variation application was submitted in May 2024, and then in July, the 9th of July 2024, a breach of condition 10 where there should be a complaints record was not available at that time, and then we carried out an inspection on the 16th of August. And that's when we found that the premises was operated without a personal license holder. We then gave advice in September, joint meeting. And then on the 11th of October, we carried out a further licensing inspection, and there were 3 breaches of conditions, and a warning letter was sent for those offences as well.
Can I stop you just for 1 second?
Yeah.
Which, if any, of the numerous breaches that have been recorded related to operating outside the conditioned hours, the licensed hours?
Well, so the 11th of October in the evening at 20:22, so 10:30 in the evening, the license holder was sent a warning letter on that occasion for breaching the hours of the license where it's 10 o'clock, and also for breaching a couple of conditions that say that customers shouldn't be outside the premises after 10 o'clock in the evening.
Because there was reference in some of the papers to kind of times past midnight. Have any of those been observed?
Just quickly looking through now. We have, well, now, sorry, noise officers visited the premises on the 9th of July, and I know that might be covered in your questions to the noise officer. And they noticed, people outside, but on that occasion it wasn't substantiated as a noise nuisance. So, but no, I think in short answer to no licensing breaches. In fact, on the 2nd of February, we visited, and the premises was closed at 11:30, and it was locked up and the lights were out.
In February?
Yeah, in February, yeah. And just, I know you had sort of a follow-on question, just generally, I think it was about when we would consider enforcement action.
Yes. I mean, how to say, I know you can't say specifically, but, was this close? Did this nearly meet the criteria, or?
I think it did, probably after the variation application was submitted. I mean, before the variation application submitted, we gave extensive advice and guidance to the license holder to try and help him make the variation application. And we were very pragmatic with any enforcement action that we took, because we understood that, as I understood it, there was an error when the application was made, and all of the conditions from our pool of conditions were copied and pasted onto the application form. So as the license holder quite rightly says, he had the same conditions that Chelsea Football Club would have, or it wasn't appropriate. So we would never consider enforcement action in those circumstances. But when obviously we helped him make the variation, and then when we had the joint meeting with other officers from the council, we made it clear what the conditions of the license were. I think after that stage, so that's more September, is when the visit and the joint meeting was held. And then in October, when there were subsequent breaches of conditions, that's when we were considering enforcement action. And then after that, in December, that's when, most recently when we visited and there's been no issues at the premises. But yeah, so it was quite close. I think probably from September onwards.
Yeah, fantastic. And just so my final question to you for now, can you just outline which actions that have been taken by the applicant, either through their, such as the December visit, or changes to the application in consultation with the police, have led you to change your request from an objection to requesting that there be a different DPS for the 94 or 96?
I think it's the addition of the conditions from the police, and I think it's the hours that were agreed with the police, and I think it's the most recent visits as well that were completely unannounced and the license holder wasn't aware of. And it was, as it happens, a completely different enforcement officer as well to the enforcement officer that's previously carried out the visits. And then I think that's helped us, come to the conclusion that we wouldn't object to this license. We are also quite conscious that obviously we're talking about enforcement history at a neighbouring premises. It's the same license holder, it's the same operator, but we do have to be mindful of that as well. So that's something we've taken into account as well.
That's great. Thank you very, very much. That's really been helpful. I'm now to, if I may, turn to Anona. If I could just ask you a couple of questions. I think I heard you say, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there have been 45 registered complaints about number 94. Have they all been from one individual?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Yeah, okay. Would you happen to know, because I believe that since we're talking about other properties, we may as well cast our umbrella a little wider. I believe that I'm correct in saying that there is another bar at number 92. Is that correct? Anybody can correct me on that.
Yes, you have Elim who's streaming football.
Okay, thank you. That's great. So Anona, would you happen to know whether the complainant that has made 45 complaints about number 94 has made any complaints about number 92?
I'm not aware of that because I'm not haven't dealt with that case, but from speaking with my colleagues, I heard there's a different complainant that complains about 92, but I haven't checked that, so I don't want to say that I'm not 100% sure about.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you. If you could perhaps maybe come back to us later and just check that, because I'd be interested to know.
I can have a quick look. Yeah.
Yeah. My other question to you is, and I think I probably misheard you. I thought you said there was a party. I thought you said December 2024 when you were reading your report. I presumed you meant December 2023. Could you just check that? It was in the first kind of paragraph or so of your report.
Oh, when I said we first received a complaint, the first complaint was received on the 7th of December 2023.
Yeah, okay, fine. I must have misheard. That's fine. Thank you. Okay, so my last question to you, it's a bit like my question to Adrian, is generally, well, firstly, I know there was one noise complaint at 3 a.m., but generally, what time of the evening are the noise complaints recorded at? Really, what I'm trying to find out, is it before 10?
11 o'clock.
Sorry.
Majority are after 11 o'clock.
After 11 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay. And typically, how long does it take, assuming they were all responded to, how long does it take an officer to get there to check the noise levels?
That would depend on how big they are on the night, because obviously they have to deal with complaints as they come in. first come, first serve, so to speak.
Sure.
So I would need to check that as well, because they're all going to be different. We aim to respond within 45 minutes, but that doesn't necessarily mean we may be able to visit. It depends on what else is going on. So that would be obviously different for each complaint. I'd have to check that.
Yeah, okay. And so I guess my final one is just to remind us how many of these complaints were upheld, in that there was noise. And I'm looking for the late ones.
Substantiated.
Yeah.
I would say just one, as far as I'm aware, and that was on the 25th of the 10th, 2024.
So 44 were not.
Yes.
Okay.
But it was mainly of people shouting late at night.
Okay. Thank you. No, that's really
right. Yeah.
I have that's everything that I'd like to ask from you for now. So thank you very much, Lorna. If I might ask you one question, and again, I've been playing with my speakers today, and it turns out that I can't hear things as well as I thought I could. So I'm just double checking I've heard everything correctly today. I understand that the hours for on sales have been altered. Am I correct to say that the hours for off sales remain unaltered?
Yeah, that's correct. Usually with so the on sales has been reduced by the police from 11 a.m. till 11:30 p.m. and then off sales would be both Monday to Sunday 11 a.m. till midnight. Usually with licensed premises with on sales, they would usually finish half an hour before the premises closed, which would give drinking up time. Hence, probably why the police reduced the hour by half an hour. It's usually half an hour drinking up time.
Okay, thank you very much. That's
You're
really,
welcome.
really helpful. Now, if I could ask the applicant, so I guess either Councillor Daly, this is to you, or Jean-Charles, that this is to you. I just have a couple of questions really about your future business model, really, just so I can understand. Because I did say earlier that this is a slightly unusual situation in that you have two conjoined properties, one with an existing license and one that you've applied for tonight for as a new license. I think I see from the plan that there is a door connecting the two properties. Really what I'm trying to find out is, will you be operating 94 and 96 as two separate establishments, or will they effectively be merged into one?
So at the moment, yes, we don't have the license on the 96, so I'm not allowed to sell alcohol for my customer during lunchtime. But yes, in the future, we are applying on the planning portal to open the access for on 94 Shepherd Bush Road. It makes sense.
Okay, fine. So at the moment, the license for 94. I'm just going to pull it up so I can get my numbers right. It's licensed until roundly about 10 p.m. And you're applying for a license for 11:30 p.m. today. So two quick questions, really. One, why, when you were doing the variation earlier in the year, did you not apply to extend the hours of the existing license? And I guess kind of dependent on what your answer is to that, should you be successful or not, in fact, this evening, will you be applying to extend the hours for 94 to match the requested?
So we apply, we pay for it. We apply in July, and basically it has been refused, not because the noise or the condition. It's more because we have so many breaches before. So regarding the police and the licensing team, it makes sense, first of all, to make a variation to reduce the condition on the premises license, and then when we will be in a good position, we will be able to apply for an extension of hours. But variation and I think it was different, but I think it's easier to make a variation than otherwise. If I want to extend hours, is full premises. I need to.
Okay.
So
Now I
first
understand.
of all, variation. We respect the condition, and then we will be able to have extension hours.
Excellent. That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Councillor Stanton, can I pause you there for a moment and just bring in Councillor Harcourt to ask a few questions, and we'll come back to yourself again. Just a very
one more question, then I'm done.
Okay, fine. I'll leave it to you.
If that's all right. So I am aware I've taken up a little more time than I normally do. I just wanted to get all the details correct. I was really just going to say, because I've asked everybody else a question. I was going to say just to Siobhan Coughlin, can you just remind us, I think you said that you hadn't personally experienced that much noise nuisance from number 94. Could you just confirm if I recall that correctly?
I said in the summer months, when the weather is warmer and windows are open, I can definitely hear people who are outside. I'm a bit further along, so I don't hear as much noise through the floor as the residents directly above it would. So my noise has been from people outside, leaving the premises, or talking or chattering. And that's been mainly in the warmer months when windows are open. When I'm walking up the street, coming home later in the evening, I've often seen people outside there beyond the agreed current licensing hours, chatting. But then once I get home, I don't hear them anymore.
That's pretty much what I thought you said. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for bearing with me. I will now hand over to Councillor Harcourt.
Thank you, Councillor Stanton. Councillor Harcourt, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Stanton. You've asked a large number of the questions I was going to. While we were clarifying things, I too heard 25th December 2025. 24 rather, and I've got a note in my notes. That's exactly what I heard. And suddenly, and what's your response to that, Anona, when Councillor Stanton asked it? Wasn't even 25th December. It was a different date altogether. You're on mute.
Sorry, which date did you hear?
I heard 25th of December 2024, which obviously hasn't happened yet. But when it was queried, you responded with 21st December 2023.
Maybe I meant 25th of October 2024.
Okay, thanks for that one. I suppose the next point is really what's been described as an unusual situation. I've heard a lot of complaints about 94, but obviously 96 is a new application and it needs to be dealt with on its merit. So are we basically saying that we don't believe the actual proprietor of 94, who's going to be the owner of 96 as well, is effectively somebody that we don't believe will be able to adhere to the conditions? Or is that what's being said? Or is that the argument that's being put forward? I don't know. I think that's probably best to the licensing people and possibly even to our legal expert. So I think it's something I need to be aware of, and to what extent do I weight my decision on 96 based on another set of premises?
I can help with that one, Councillor, if you'd like. I mean, I think we've definitely got concerns with the licence holder and the way that they've been operating previously. And I think it's quite unusual for us to make a representation to an application, and we're talking about enforcement history at a different premises. And obviously, we wouldn't be in that position if this premises was half a mile down the road. But because it's right next, obviously, it is a neighbouring premises and it's the same operator, it's the same business model. We felt it would be helpful to give that enforcement history to you to make that decision. Obviously, we've come to the conclusion that although there has been breaches, there have been issues there, that ultimately in the whole scheme of things, that we wouldn't object to it because it's independent business, and it's exactly the sort of business that obviously we want in Hammersmith and Fulham. But we just felt it was right to make you aware of that history. And as I said, you're quite right. We did have concerns, and we still do have concerns. And I would say that I don't think the license holder has really addressed any, given any reasons as to why those breaches occurred, and we still don't really know why they occurred. And we've got lots of independent businesses that comply with all of their conditions of their licenses and manage to do so. So, we would ask the same of this license holder as we would of any other license holder, really.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from you, Emmanuel?
Yes, Councillor. What I would say is the weight should be on the history of the premises holders' ability to operate a license rather than the specific premises. And so the complaints relate to his history of operating a license with similar licensing activities. And so that's where the weight should be rather than the location of the premises being addressed.
Okay, thanks. Question then to Jean-Charles. Was 94 the first premises that you've operated, or have you a long history of running bars and such like?
No, Councillor, I have no experience. I didn't have any experience before. It's my first shop.
Okay, thank you on that one. I think that's, as I say, Councillor Stanton's asked the majority of questions I was going to, so I think I'm going to leave it at that. If something else comes up to mind in a minute, I'll ask that, if that's okay, Councillor Walsh.
No worries at all. Thank you, Councillor Harcourt. I wanted to firstly start on the matter of Shepherd's Bush Road itself. Obviously, we've heard two points being made this evening. One about the street being exceptionally quiet in the evening, and the other about it being one where there is a number of businesses in close proximity operating later than the current licensed hours for the premises. I was wondering, for licensing, if you can advise of neighboring premises or premises in close proximity about what their operating hours are in the area.
Yeah, I can answer that for you, Councillor Walsh. So there's an Ealing restaurant which is 92 Shepherd's Bush Road. They have the provision of late night refreshment indoors, Friday and Saturday 11 till midnight. They have the provision of late night refreshment outdoors, Thursday to Saturday 11 till 1 a.m. They have the sale of alcohol off the premises Monday to Sunday from 12 midday till 11 p.m. And then the sale of alcohol on the premises Monday to Sunday from 12 till 11, 12 midday to 11 p.m. Then we have there's Le Petit Citron, which is a restaurant which is 98 to 100 Shepherd's Bush Road, which is just the other side. They have the provision of late night refreshment indoors only, Monday to Saturday 11 till midnight, and a Sunday 11 till 11:30. And they have sale of alcohol on the premises Monday to Saturday 9 a.m. till midnight, and Sunday 9 a.m. till 11:30. And then a bit further down there is, so I'm just getting the license up, there is the Richmond Arms, which for the sale of they have live music, recording music and dance as well, but for the sale of alcohol on and off the premises, their license Sunday to Thursday from 10 a.m. till midnight, and Friday and Saturday 10 a.m. till 1 a.m. With the premises being open an hour later each of the times there. I don't know how many premises do you want me to?
No, it's fine.
There's quite a lot in the area, so there's a variation of hours, but from 11 till 1 a.m.
Exactly. The point I'm trying to understand is this a street where late night activity typically takes place? And I think from what you've described there is a variety of businesses operating along this street, providing either late night refreshment or they're operating later into the evening anyway. So I think you've answered my question in that regard. My next question is for Jean-Charles as the applicant. We've heard this evening both from the objector, but also actually, I don't think it was the objector. I think it was in the representations that were made about the noise from building work, but also you referenced yourself about renovations for soundproofing. Could you just elaborate on what soundproofing works that you're undertaking? Is it in 94 or 96, or what works are you undertaking for the purposes of soundproofing?
So 96 Shepherd Bush Road is a new shop. We had a builder. He's been working for 1 month. We changed the floor, so there is no problem selling, no problem regarding the landlord. 94, we have an issue because it's a very old building from 19th century, so it's quite old. So we had to work on the ceiling, and we start already. Unfortunately, he complained already, so we had to stop. But yes, we are working on the soundproofing in the couple of weeks. Probably my builder is away for holiday, so we are working on it. But I beg that he will complain for another thing anyway. So we had this problem also. I'm dubbed. It's me because I don't like football, to be honest. So I don't stream football. So I don't think it's my premises. He complained about the music. We don't have music very loud. I mean, except Christmas music at the moment. But I know that my neighbor upstairs, the other place, used to have music. So I'm not sure that the noise comes from my premises. That I doubt about it. And same for the terrace, because we have Elim restaurant next door, and I don't say they're quiet, but it's a lively place as well. So it's not very justified, all these complaints, in my opinion.
Thank you, Jean-Charles. Anona, in your representation, I believe it was that you did reference about sound mitigation report or something to that effect. Is what's being described by the applicant what you'd be pursuing, or is there additional steps that you'd be looking to have undertaken as part of noise mitigation?
Okay, so we would require an acoustic consultant to carry out an acoustic report to ensure that the sound insulation that's being implemented is adequate, because quite often people put in sound insulation that is inadequate. There are certain guidelines whereby we expect noise levels, is the WHO guidelines to be specific, expect noise levels in bedrooms during the daytime to be 35 dB and at night time to be 30 dB. So usually we would ask for the actual sound insulation to be over and above the normal building regulations. For a residential, we would want it increased by at least 15 to 20 dB, depending on what you're doing on the premises, between a commercial and a residential premises.
And has this been?
That's why we would ask for an acoustic consultant.
And obviously, as mentioned by the applicant, these are works currently ongoing. Have you communicated the standards that you would expect these works to obtain once completed?
No, I have asked the applicant to provide a noise management plan, but I haven't received that.
Okay.
Just to see what mitigation measures he is making to reduce noise emanating from the premises.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor, you're on mute.
It's bound to happen with one of us. My final question is to Councillor Daly as the ward councillor for the area. Councillor, obviously, could you speak a little bit to your understanding of the business, and obviously you've made reference earlier, which we couldn't consider at that point, about residents and their relationship with the business. was wondering if you could speak a bit to that now at this point.
Councillor, that's still the case. Their representations will still be part of it at this point, so that cannot be taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. Councillor Day, if you wish to make a more general point about the premises as a ward councillor, obviously bearing in mind representations cannot be considered as part of anything you say.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It is a wine shop. 94 is a wine shop, and Jean-Charles knows an awful lot about wine. And the sort of people that go in there are people who want to know about wine and drink nice wine. They're not people who go in and they want to dance to live music. They want to knock back the shots. It's not that kind of premises. It's gentle, genteel, I should probably say. It's the kind of place where anybody can go on their own or as a couple. You don't see groups of people there. The people there tend to be older. Most of the people that have written to me are people that have lived in the area for a long time. It's definitely an older clientele who aren't there to get drunk. They're there to find out about wines, to eat cheeses. He has an amazing charcuterie. It's really very unique establishment. A lot of residents are just really happy that Jean-Charles has chosen our small bit of London to open this quite unique offering. And some people that have written to me are people who are traveling in just for it. So as a bus driver went past, saw it and travelled in and brings his wife, and they come every week just to enjoy a glass of wine and a bit of cheese and crackers there. And the things that people say are all about the warmth and the conviviality and the hub and what it brings to the community. So we're very used to bars and restaurants that really just that are there just for the party. You know, we've got Belushi's at the end of the road here. There's a lot of that sort of stuff goes on. This is a really different type of establishment. When Jean-Charles is closed, you can say Shepherd's Bush Road can be threatening. It's full of hotels, which, you know, there's a lot of different people on the street at all different times. There are HMOs there. There are a number of homeless hostels. There are people there undergoing treatment for drug addictions and alcohol abuse. There are instances of people, a lot of women on their own, it's sort of just after 10 o'clock at night, when everything's moved indoors, being just I had a resident who had learning difficulties and was going to the Lyric for a class that built her confidence, and was assaulted just on her way home, really just a few doors down outside Gales at, what is that number, 100. So having kind of this establishment is really important for the area. It makes it feel safer, it makes it feel warmer, it's providing that hub. There's just so much more to it than any other licensed premises, and I think that perhaps there is more of a rush when people are told that they have to leave at 10 o'clock. There is probably more of a hubbub. There is probably more of a kind of oh, I wasn't expecting that, let me just finish my drink, that kind of thing going on. And that might be what's generating some of the additional noise. But if it had a later license, or at least if it could trial having a later license, then we could see whether people then left at different times and left quieter and left, you know, if that is one of the issues. I just don't think that the borough has really given Jean-Charles a chance to make everything that he could make of this place. And I've just got so many residents behind me, all in Addison and Brook Green, Shepherd's Bush, and going up to Askew, all saying the same kind of things. It enhances the area. It doesn't detract.
Thank you, Councillor. That's all from myself at the moment. Do any other members of the committee wish to ask any questions? Let me try and find you guys on the screen. Councillor Stanton or Councillor Harcourt? Councillor Harcourt.
Yeah, very briefly, again to Jean-Charles. In terms of staff and the breaches and things, what sort of training have the staff undertaken? And you know, there's you mentioned safety, or a number of people have mentioned safety for women and safe haven. Are they trained on things like the Ask Angela business?
Councillor, at the moment, my license doesn't allow me to leave my premises. That's why we breached on the 15th of August. I was on holidays and we have to close the shop because I saw, and legally in national scale, any premises need one CPS, right? On my application and on my premises, I didn't write it, and it's my responsibility. I should have read it. Any people on the premises need to have a personal license. I don't know why. Legally, it's not fair for me because in national, in England, you just need one person, doesn't need to be on the premises. So that's why I'm actually currently on the premises because I cannot leave it. So I have crazy hours at the moment. In terms of training, at the moment we have five people with the new premises. I hire three new staff. So we have 2 barista and 1 chef. And on the other side, for the 1 bar, I have 2 part-time, 2 students. 1 student and the other one just finished it. They have been trained obviously on the premises. They are aware that they cannot sell alcohol under 21 years, but still, because I'm here on the premises all the time, they don't need specifically a training.
Okay, and you plan to get another DPS, is that right?
I need another DPS, yeah, because actually we are going to hire John starting in January. He got already a personal license.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harcourt. Councillor Stanton, did you have any final comments?
You'll be very pleased to hear that I don't.
No worries. Okay, in that case, we shall move along to deliberation. The committee. Oh, sorry, I'm going ahead of myself, actually. Sorry. We will now move to summing up. So can I please ask the parties to sum up as briefly as possible, and starting with the licensing officer, Lorna McKenna.
Nothing further to add from me, Chair.
Thank you, Lorna. Adrian, you've up to 3 minutes to speak if you wish.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't have actually anything to sum up, but I did want to just answer the query just about the DPS, because I think that was raised a moment ago. Just the fact that only 1 DPS, any premises can only have 1 DPS. But I think the condition on John Charles's license says that there should be a personal license holder on duty whenever alcohol is sold. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be him. So there could be another member of staff, as long as there's somebody there who's got a personal license when alcohol is being sold, so he can go abroad or do whatever he wants to do. Obviously, if he does leave at the moment, then no alcohol can be sold, but he just needs to make sure that somebody else goes on the personal license course. And my other point was just in relation to Ask for Angela. We can offer advice and guidance on that, and I can contact John Charles separately about that after this hearing, irrespective of the decision, just to go through that and what the requirements are from the council. But nothing else from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. In that case, moving on to Anona and Theo, you have up to 3 minutes to sum up if you wish.
Okay, I just wanted to mention, you asked the question about if the complainant had complained about number 92 Shepherd's Bush Road. I checked our records and he's complained on the 2nd of the 3rd, 24 at 23:41 hours. And again on the 3rd of the 3rd, 24 at 00:25 hours and 13 hours. And in terms of anything more to add, it's just my recommendations in terms of the applicant should consult an acoustic consultant. I've mentioned that before, to carry out a noise report to ensure that any sound insulation that's being submitted is done so adequately, and also produce a noise management plan. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Anona. In that case, we'll move on to the objector, Siobhan. Siobhan, likewise, you have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reinforce some of the points that have been made, as I said earlier on and in my written submission, the business is an asset, absolutely recognise that, and it's added variation to the offer along this street. However, unfortunately, the conditions of the licence haven't been adhered to for the property to date, and there has been noise. As I said, I'm further those hear it more often. I know that Mr. Charles is an amiable and a decent person, and I think perhaps maybe there are times some of his customers who have perhaps enjoyed a little bit too much wine don't necessarily adhere to his request tone of the noise of the volume of their voice, and I am worried that by having the two premises operating as one, that is going to cause further problems along here. And I wouldn't want to see people turning against the business, because it is an asset.
May I say something?
No.
Getting the balance is right, which there are people who live here. Sorry, was I being stopped?
No, you can continue, Siobhan. It's Jean-Charles asked to speak. Mr. Charles, you will have an opportunity to speak in a moment, but right now it is Siobhan's opportunity to speak. You have another 1.5 minutes to speak, Siobhan.
Thank you. As I think Councillor Daly implied earlier on, there have been other properties in the area. The Richmond was a source of noise at one point, which caused disturbance to the residents here. With the change of management, that has gone. The new licence holder there seems to be adhering to their licence conditions. There are no other properties along this stretch which have caused noises that I have heard or witnessed. And yes, it is a mixed area, but people still live here. And I have lived here for nearly 30 years, and it's only more recently that I felt the need to make complaints, because it has disturbed me. I haven't been able to get a decent night's sleep, and if you've got to get up for work the next day, then that can be a problem. But as I said, it's to try and help make sure that we get the balance right, so Mr. Charles can run a business which is much appreciated and much enjoyed, but also the residents who live here can get their night's sleep without being interrupted by some of his customers who maybe are a bit worse aware for alcohol, leaving at different times and hanging around outside chatting. It's as simple as that. And I give you the opportunity to try and square that circle as a panel, but hopefully you will take on board the advice that you've been given by officers and the complaints, as well as the needs of Mr. Charles's business. Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan. And we will now move on to the applicant. So either Jean-Charles or Jacqueline, you have up to 9 minutes to sum up.
So Charles, do you want to go first, and then I'll just top at the end? Thanks.
Just a quick word. Well, first of all, it's an asset. I recognize it's definitely an asset for the neighborhood. It is also it's a good place for safety reasons. Many times, maybe 2 or 3 times recently, we had a lady who has been followed by people, and every time we had to close the shutter, not the shutter, the shop. So opening after 11 o'clock, and especially when you think about the babysitter who had to come back home in the dark with sometimes dodgy people. It's a good, it's nice, and for security reasons, we will always ask people who are followed or in trouble in the street. This is my job. This is a job of hospitality. Now, I recognize after 10 o'clock, and I talk about with police about it, only smokers are allowed to be outside, but this is London. We are in London. So this is one of the biggest and dynamic cities in the world. Don't close your shop at 10 o'clock. London needs to be attractive to the rest of the world. We have hotel in the streets. If you close your shop at 10 o'clock, where are they going to go? It's very important nowadays to push hospitality. If there is no way today to meet people except if you go on Tinder. You don't want to push Deliveroo. You don't want to push all the dating, all the application. So hospitality, it's a place to meet people, security for safety reason, and it's very important to keep that in mind. I do believe, and I respect my neighborhood, so I'm more than happy to work on insulation. We never had complaint from outside. We had complaint from upstairs. Maybe in summertime, just mentioned, in summertime, if you walk in the neighborhood, you will hear a lot of people having party in their garden. This is liberty. They are allowed to have parties in the garden. So I'm not sure it's all come from my place. I'm happy to work on it, but people are aware that they can have a barbecue outside. There are plenty garden in Brooklyn. So tell me that I'm only in charge of the nuisance in summertime is a bit limited.
Thanks, Jean-Charles. Can I just say that it's been mentioned that when Jean-Charles didn't own a bar, he had a market stall, and when he took that, he had and his business partner had some poor advice. They applied for and they traded under more conditions than Chelsea Football Club. So it's not surprising that somebody in their very first ever business venture failed on some of those conditions. There was far too many, and it was just really poor advice back then. And I think we're now still unpicking that. I don't think Jean-Charles should have a personal license. I think it should be a license for a bar, perhaps. I'd also like to just kind of point out that 94 is an old drafty unit with it had sunken lights, so kind of Swiss cheese ceiling, and that's where some of these noise issues have been. 96, which we're discussing tonight, has none of those issues. It's a really new unit and it's really well insulated. If you grant the license this evening, then he will be operating. There is no internal connecting door between 94 and 96 at the moment. So the activity will be exclusively in 96. And I think it's important to know that. I think that as Ms. Coughlin said, she's had been having trouble sleeping. That isn't because of Lammy Jack exclusively or possibly. I know that Ms. Coughlin, sorry for getting your name wrong here, has had some real issues with roadworks, with the Richmond. When she said that she hasn't slept for a long time, I hope you won't take it to think that this is purely because of Lammy Jacks. Look, I think that we really need to support small business owners. I think that small business owners need to be given a chance. I think that Jean-Charles, if he doesn't get this license and he's not able to open late, he might not make the amount of money that he needs to make during this Christmas period. And the residents here really want his business to be viable, and they want him to continue. They don't want it to see that unit reduced back to being a nail bar or something similar. It adds more than it can possibly take away. Chair, is that me? Am I out of time?
No. You were at 5 minutes, so you still have another 3 minutes to speak.
All right, lovely. Well, the one thing that Jean-Charles hasn't really talked about, and I thought that he would have done, was how when he set this up, he had a business partner, and he relied on his business partner to do quite a lot of the administration for him. The business partner stood back from the business, which is probably a really good thing for Jean-Charles to be able to get the administration in order. So you would expect from now, and I think that I think that it's been sort of mentioned that that having the paperwork correct and the right signs in the windows is something that's actually now being sorted out, and that's something that Jean Charles has taken control of and is doing. He's a very responsible person. He has a very warm and welcoming bar, and I think that I would ask the committee to consider at least granting him a license and seeing what he does with it, and seeing where it goes, and seeing what happens next, rather than just deny it from the offset, from the get-go. Jean-Charles, do you have anything else to add?
No, I'm aware that I need to work on the soundproofing for the license 94 Shepherd Bush Road. I do need the license for my Christmas parties. It's December for us, hospitality. It's very important. January is dead, so I'm going to struggle financially if I don't make money in December. Especially the new business. At the moment, for example, we touch all generation, and at lunchtime we have people who are 40s, 50s who will enjoy a glass of wine with a daily, but they cannot at the moment. So for this reason, yes, I trust community if they can grant my premises license. In addition, every time when we got the TEN license, we never had complaints. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Charles. Okay, the committee will now retire to take its decision in a separate meeting room. You are welcome to remain in the meeting room to hear the committee's decision. However, this may take some time. If you do not wish to wait, a summary decision will be published on the council's website tomorrow morning. Can I ask members of the committee to turn off their video, mute their microphones, and to join me in the Teams room for deliberations?
Jean-Charles, this might take a little while.
Should I switch off? Yeah.
I would say you might as well turn your mic off and turn your video camera off, and just keep listening to it.
Okay, give it a moment for everybody to rejoin.
Chair, with apologies, my camera is refusing to reconnect to Zoom. It seems to think it's still in Teams, so I will leave that off if that's all right.
No worries at all. Okay. In that case, thank you everybody for waiting, and we are now ready to give our decision. So, the committee has considered an application for a new premises license under the Licensing Act of 2003 for the following licensable activities: the exhibition of film, indoors only, the provision of late night refreshments, indoors only, the sale of alcohol both on and off the premises. In summary, the committee has decided, after taking into account all of the individual circumstances of this case and the promotion of the four licensing objectives, to grant the application as follows. The exhibition of films, indoors only, Monday to Sunday, 11 a.m. to midnight. The provision of late night refreshment, indoors only, Monday to Sundays, 2300 hours to midnight. The sale of alcohol on the premises, Monday to Sunday, 11 to half 11 p.m. The sale of alcohol off the premises, Monday to Sunday, 11 a.m. to midnight. The opening hours of the premises are Monday to Sunday, 7 a.m. to midnight. The license is subject to any mandatory conditions. The license is subject to the conditions volunteered by the applicant in the operating schedule as amended by the committee. The license is subject to the conditions proposed by the police and agreed to by the applicant. The license is subject to the following conditions imposed by the committee. 1. That all staff responsible for selling alcohol shall receive relevant training from an external source before making any unsupervised sales. The training shall include the Licensing Act of 2003 in terms of the licensing objectives and the offences committed under the Act, the conditions of the premises license, and the sale of age-restricted products. The training will be refreshed at least every 6 months, and staff shall sign to confirm that they have received and understood the training. Written records of this training shall be retained and made available to the police or authorised officers of the licensing authority upon request. Second, there shall be a minimum of one personal license holder on duty on the premises at all times when the premises are authorised to sell alcohol. The license shall become operational with immediate effect. If problems are experienced, then an application for a review of the premises license can be made. A copy of the committee's full decision, including its reasons, and the full text of the conditions added to the license will be sent to the parties forthwith. If the applicant or any person who has made a relevant representation is unhappy with the decision, they are entitled to appeal to the magistrate's court within 21 days from the date of the notification of this decision. And that concludes our meeting this evening. I'd like to thank everybody for their participation. Good evening.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening.